Welcome to Urban Legends with your hosts, Smartwatch, Neil and Chris, and Lucas Speaker.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Urban Legends, the internet, the world's biggest internet urban legends podcast based on volume. I am Chris Flynn, and Neil, I haven't given us crazy back characters this week because we've both been very busy, so we're just kind of doing it loosey-goosey, aren't we?
Yeah, just gonna play it around. I mean, what I'd say there, Chris, what's interesting, I'm thinking, is there like a non-web based podcast type thing? I don't know. I suppose you could maybe get a wax cylinder, you could carve it into that and put it in a glass bottle.
When you go into town, there's people who are like, like people used to sell like mixtapes of them rapping.
Yeah, that's true.
You could get podcasts, like people kind of like giving them out in the street.
Crazy homeless people, they're like the original podcasters, aren't they?
Yeah, in a way, yeah. Sort of.
Those two lads who sit outside Waitrose and scream abuse at everyone that they think's better than, thinks that they think that they're better than them, which is everyone.
That's us.
That's us.
That's us.
I mean, they get a better audience than us. I'd say that. My street podcasting name is the Brighton Bell End. Streetcar, dude.
That's what they know me as.
Yeah.
How did you enjoy? Did you do anything for the coronation and stuff? You went and saw your family.
Yeah, I went and saw family. So watched all the.
Did you watch it?
As a pageantry. Yeah, well, they were kind of queen and watching.
Gutted.
I mean, to be honest with you, it's kind of like it's worth a watch. It's kind of like a bit mad. I mean, Nick Cave was there as well. He thought the same thing. Yeah, no. My favourite bit was I was quite looking forward to when they were going to oil him up.
Brighter than Nick Cave.
Yeah, that's true actually. They were going to oil him up, but they hid him in a little box.
Little box, what? Like
so people couldn't see what was going on.
Well, like just on his head, like
one getting of those, greased up. No, literally like
booty torch people,
Marines or whatever in fancy uniforms came out with these really elaborately like printed screens, and then just hid him in like a little chamber.
What, while
him and a priest got
greased up?
For God's eyes only, whatever was going on there.
Fucking hell.
Anointing apparently, but yeah.
Yeah.
That was a bit of fun.
I didn't see any of it.
Have you heard like all of the sort of things about, like Penny Mordaunt holding up the sword and all of this?
Yeah, I mean, it just shows you how fucking shit the Conservative Party are and the people who they've put in charge, because Penny Mordaunt was able to carry a sword for a bit, and then they were saying, well, that could be our next Prime Minister.
Yeah, didn't completely humiliate or, completely alienate a load of people.
Yeah, she didn't decapitate the king or anything, so, that puts her number 2 in the pecking order in the party.
What I like as well, because she was on like a reality TV diving show.
She was.
So loads of people just did the obvious kind of like, Excalibur Lady of the Lake thing, where it was, sort of memes of her handing over the sword and then diving into the football. That was all a lot of fun.
Oh, so much fun. I found it very fun that those people got arrested for thinking about protesting, maybe.
Yeah.
And locked
thought
up.
crime.
Yeah, thought crimes. That's nice, isn't it? It's nice that we've got that in the country now.
Well, yeah, I like the fact we're turning more rapidly into the Orwellian society that I always knew we'd become. I knew we could do it.
Yeah, I spent the weekend tidying my flat because I had a flat inspection, Neil. That's pretty out of the blue. And because I'm not meant to have my cats.
Yeah, so
or any joy or laughter.
Yeah.
Anything, yeah. There's like a.
Does he make sure that there's a few tear stains somewhere, so he knows he's charging enough money?
Yeah, exactly.
And then also you can take them out your security deposit.
Oh yeah.
Overcharge you for cleaning them out.
Yeah, got to get a humidifier to get rid of all your tears. Well, no, it's the agency that came round, but I managed to get rid of all the cat stuff.
Yeah,
and clean the place. And then my cats, because of their nature, because they're quite nervous cats, like even for cats.
Yeah,
they went and hid in drawers when people started coming in. So that was good of them. So I got away with it. Not drawers, Neil. When I say drawers, I don't mean my underwear. I mean the wooden boxes on rails that slide in and out of a larger wooden box, and people generally keep kind of their clothes, bits of cloth in them.
Or cats.
They're quite all cats. It's quite medieval, isn't it? Keeping clothes in wooden boxes. What are we doing, Neil? What are we do? What are humans doing?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
What are we, like, why did we get rid of fur? Why don't we have fur anymore? It doesn't make any sense. That seems like an evolutionary mistake.
It's kind of right, yeah. Just I mean, I thought you were doing like a pro animal skin thing there. No, yeah, as in why did we become hairless apes?
Yeah, because we get more sunburn and we also die of exposure in the cold. And then we have to learn stuff really complicated like weaving, right? So that we can put our cloths on. This isn't what the future should be, putting bits of cloth into wooden boxes.
You just want us all to evolve back into like gorillas or something.
Well, I don't understand why we moved away from that, really. It doesn't seem like it has any particular benefit. And also, why are we still putting clothes in, folding up our colourful cloths, all cut up and sewn, and put in our little boxes? Why don't we have, like, pneumatic tubes? You know, like in the old 1960s.
Or something.
Like the 1960s department stores.
Well, we used those for cash when I worked in a supermarket. So they had vacuum tubes. Yeah.
Very nice. Did you ever put your penis in it? Gonna ask.
Accidentally once. I say accidentally.
Accidentally, yeah. Oh, I've done it again. It's weird that you've shaved so that you could get a proper seal if it's an accident.
Yeah.
So
I don't know everything.
So, what do people? So, when you think of our podcast, what do you think of? I think of tradition, standards, honor. What do you think?
Those are all concepts, not the ones that I would associate with.
Because along those lines, this week I'm going to read you a little tale about possibly the most haunted house in London, which is maybe the most haunted city. Do you think what is the most haunted city? Paris? No.
You'd think it would be the oldest one, wouldn't you? So I don't know. Would it be somewhere in China, maybe?
The oldest city, the oldest continual cities are like Accra and Damascus.
Yeah, I mean, you could be out somewhere like I don't know. I think it would be one of those kind of ancient cities.
But
maybe not, because maybe it's about how many people are living there.
That's it, isn't it? So how are you feeling about some ghostly goings on?
I'm feeling good about this because I think we had a haunted house in Enfield, so I'm interested to see how it.
Oh, that was the poltergeist.
That was a poltergeist, yeah.
Yeah, this is more
definitely wasn't being made up by a couple of
This is more traditional.
Crying out for attention. Okay.
Yeah, and then the Warrens came in and made money out of it. Fucking Warrens.
Bless them, I like it. They've kicked off many a film franchise, to be fair to them.
Any of them good? Nah.
So it's all about, like, I don't know what you call them. James Wan movies, isn't it? Like Insidious. They've all got those kind of titles. Insidious, conspicuous.
So the first article I'm going to draw from is from a website called LondonOverlooked.com.
Oh, okay.
And the article is just written by the website. It doesn't have a.
What's the actual urban legend this week? It's London's most haunted something.
So it's 50 Berkley Square.
Okay.
Haunted by sadness, or is 50 Berkley Square London's most ghost-ridden house?
We'll soon find out.
And I've noticed as well, listening back to some of the podcasts, that I was becoming increasingly Cockney or kind of South London. And I think it's because I've been listening to Cockney podcasts. You know me, I'm like a sponge.
Yeah.
Like a chameleon shapeshifter. So I'm gonna try and be more speak more properly, if that's okay.
Well,
Neil.
Britonians are all basically Mockneys anyway, to be honest with you. So
I don't know if they're Mockneys. It's just the
well, no, I have that kind of accent. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of
South London accent.
It's a bit South London anyway. The Brighton accent. It's not that different.
No, but I've always been rather well spoken, so I shall try to go back to that for today's episode.
Try and do a bit more RP.
Yes. So
Class this joint up a little bit.
Yeah, lovely. Oh, and London Overlook at London Overlook is available on Twitter. Should anyone wish to follow them?
Oh, there you go. You can find out what stories they're covering currently. It takes your fancy. Why not pop in and have a read?
Yeah. Stop telling people what to do now.
I'm not. I'm just advising them things that they can do.
Stop it. If they wanted your advice, they'd ask for it.
Yeah, maybe they have. Maybe they've been.
Or secretly
coming to me in their droves.
Really?
Yeah.
Been secretly talking to the
This cat knows what he's talking about. He's got the inside track on what's hip. That's how the Gen Z talking it.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Like some 50s.
Hey, Daddy-O.
Restart.
You seem like you ain't no jive turkey.
Yeah, the inside jive talking cat.
Right, so 50 Berkley Square would appear to be an unlikely...
It feels like it should be some sort of rhyming slang, anyway.
Berkley Square, for a pair.
Fair enough.
I don't know.
See if we can improve on that later on. I haven't got anything better, I'll be honest.
Chair? Why don't you just put your ass on the Berkley Square?
Get out.
50 Berkley Square would appear to be an unlikely location for the most haunted house in London. This elegant Mayfair townhouse on the west side of the square certainly does not look from the outside as if it was troubled by disturbed spirits. Mayfair being the very almost, well, I mean, it's pretty much like Little Moscow at the moment, but I think it's pretty much like one of the most expensive places in the world to live for non-UK people.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
I think that is the most expensive square on our Monopoly board. So
I've not played Monopoly for years.
Yeah, there's Pall Mall and Mayfair. So, no joke. Imagine what it's doing to the property prices, all this haunting.
Oh, dread to think.
So, its reputation is probably connected to the popularity of haunted house stories in the 19th century newspapers.
They did like a bit of spiritualism back in the day, didn't they?
They did. For which see my earlier piece on Stamford Street. With no television for a little evening entertainment, huge crowd would gather outside waiting to see if a ghost would appear.
Oh my God, that's like
where are you going? I'll go Berkley Squares.
Well, the thing is, but back in those days, at least the mediums had actually, put a bit of effort and, try and make stuff happen.
I mean,
these days, you just, you go and see one of these programs. And it's like, oh, did I hear a sound there?
The thing is,
they'd be like coughing up ectoplasm and stuff.
No TV, but on the other hand, opium freely available at pharmacists. So, do that. Stick on some marching band music, drift away.
Nice.
It's
basics, I say.
It's basics. Listen to someone playing Handel whilst off your face on smack. It's an odd fact that hauntings and generally unpleasant events that were originally associated with other places in this part of London came to be attached to number 50. There were fictional stories in the newspapers and a popular novel set in Berkley Square, which many took as based on fact, and this once run-down building gained a reputation that persisted to the present day.
So you mean to say they were making up stories in newspapers even back then?
Even back then, Neil.
Just goes to show, doesn't it?
Don't never trust a journalist.
Yeah.
It even appears as a venue for Charles Dickens' Ghost Club mission in the Assassin's Creed Syndicate video game, which is true. I completed that last week because I played it and then got really bored of it and wasn't enjoying it about 5 years ago, and then went back and actually quite enjoyed it this time.
Okay. I've got it on a computer. So it's one of those ones that I bought in a sale and then never bother getting around to. There's probably like 200 I've got like that. But if I'd known there was a Charles Dickens thing, I might have had a...
Oh yeah, and Charles Darwin, he's in it.
Is he? Oh, I might have to give this a go.
Yep, and Graham Bell and Florence Nightingale and Queen Victoria, she's in it. You can do submissions for her. Yeah, all of the gang, all of the top cats. So the supernatural beings associated with this most haunted of houses includes a ghostly child who wears a kilt. I saw the story goes. A young woman who committed suicide and who appears as either brown or white mist.
Okay.
That's what happens if you commit suicide.
Yeah, you turn into a brown mist.
And a young man who went mad and was locked in the attic.
That's where you went back in those days, wasn't it?
Yeah, in the attic.
Started being a bit erratic. Attic time.
Yeah, got slight melancholia.
Well, you can't sort of like eat your soup without spilling it. Attic time.
Attic time. Whereas if you're not erratic enough, basement time.
Yeah.
You've got to have the right
margins,
level of erraticness.
Yeah.
Very fine margins. It's a very prescriptive age.
Well, yeah.
But the horror does not end there. And there are many who supposedly spent time in the house and came to a sticky end. A maid driven mad by the sight of an apparition died of fright a day later in hospital.
Oh dear.
A nobleman who spent the night in the house committed suicide 4 years later, unrelated.
Well, he would have turned into a brown mist because he was a nobleman.
Yes, he would have turned into a red puddle. I don't know. A young man engaged to be married to a daughter of the house died of fright, like the maid. And a sailor who took refuge in what he believed was an empty house was chased to his death by a phantom.
Quite a lot of killing.
And
body count's high, I'd prove.
The house was also home to an eccentric, jilted recluse. That could be describing you now.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, Chris. What's happening here is they're losing a bit of
your CV, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that. But no, also, it feels like they're losing a bit of focus. They want
too much.
Yeah, they want to pick one of these and sort of like develop a through line.
Well,
they're throwing a lot at it. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, but you throw enough shit, some of it sticks. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well.
So,
and of course, I'm assuming that any of this actually happened.
Neil, believe in these ghostly apparitions if you will. The fact remains that most of the people who supposedly saw them were fictitious or could not have had the opportunity to go inside the house. The only part of this story that seems to be true is that which concerns the reclusive eccentric mentioned above. His name was Thomas Myers. He lived at number 50, and his shadowy tale is that I am about to tell.
So basically, there was just some loner who lived at a house, and people made up a load of stories about how maids were turning into brown mist and stuff.
I understand that because I think everyone's neighbourhood had a house where presumably there was like a shut-in, and it was like all overgrown and stuff, and they were probably a hoarder. And people used to say it was haunted. Yeah. The tale begins with Myers' father, Thomas Myers of Appleby in Westmoreland, who, with the help of a wealthy and well-connected great uncle, John Robertson, sailed to India at the tender age of 17 to join the East India Company. Wonderful company.
Yes, yeah, very, very profitable.
Very profitable. Had its own army.
In no way,
problematic.
Morally dubious and problematic ways of making money. Yeah.
Well, we're getting back to it now, so don't worry. Described by his cousin Dorothy Wordsworth as a sensible man and very clever at business.
Mm.
He went on to become a competent general in Bengal.
Okay.
But it's spelled ACCOMPTANT. So a competent general was apparently a rank or something. Rather, he was a competent general.
Oh, right. He wasn't that he was good at his job. He was just some sort of, don't know.
Well, apparently.
I've not heard of that as a
military
euphemism.
Why it confused me. It's why it confused me.
Maybe it's just a typo.
Maybe it's a typo. like many of his on the internet.
Yeah, that's true.
Like many of his
all them proofreaders would have spotted it, wouldn't they?
Yeah, exactly. Like many of his,
covering up the internet, making it look bad.
My mum sent me a link to an article the other day, and she was going, "Oh, is this AI?" Because she's a bit worried about AI.
Okay.
And I looked at the article and I was like, "No, this is just like a really badly written article." It's one of those ones where, as you scroll through, it counts as another page click. So it's like, those horrible paragraphs at a time with the heading articles.
Well, I mean, with half the websites that are out there these days, because they're not being written for passion, they're just like cheap cash grabs trying to get you to, reload of adverts and stuff. I mean, they're probably AI is probably going to improve the standard, frankly.
Yeah, could well be, couldn't it?
Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of problems with AI, but yeah,
I can't see any, to be honest. Can't see any problems.
That's
like many of his contemporaries, he had a relationship with a local woman and had at least one daughter with her. We know this because in 1795, Dorothy agreed to take charge of the child of his and wrote about the arrangement in her letters. So that's his sister took his illegitimate child.
Raised it. Okay.
However, we hear no more of the matter, and it may be that the child, who would have been 3 or 4 at the time, stayed with her mother. It may have also be the case that they were handsomely provided for by Myers, but somehow this does not seem very likely.
I think he's making some assumptions there.
Yeah, you don't know anything about this, Myers. Yeah. Well, unless we read on and it was like...
Yeah. We shall see.
So, by the time he was 36, Myers Sr. had made his fortune and returned to England. He was elected as a Member of Parliament for Harwich, and in 1802 he married 18-year-old Lady Mary Kathleen Neville, the daughter of the 2nd Earl of Abergavenny, and the granddaughter of his patron, John Robinson.
And I'm getting lost in the facts here, Chris. So this is the dad of the guy who's going to turn into the loner shut-in?
No, this is...
Or is this the shut-in? Is he going his early days? Origin stories?
Thomas... I think this is the dad.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is... Yeah.
I mean, I lost track as well, to be honest.
This is his origin story, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we started with about 55 different types of ghouls and ghosts, and then
we just got into
a fairly pedestrian
story about
the origins of some guy, the shut-in.
Of the
that's a
East India Company and British Empire. So the marriage, which was regarded by,
mind you, if there's anything that's going to deserve a haunting, it's somebody who
profited from the East India Company.
Yeah. I mean, no way surprised at the amount of ghosts and ghouls that have turned up at the house.
But you know what, Neil? In some ways, and I'm telling myself this as more than anyone else, really. After our very loose coronation special, it's nice to have a proper story, a proper boring story.
Back to the good stuff.
I need to start reading ahead. So the marriage, which was regarded by the Neville family as a mésalliance, took place on the 20th of January 1802 at White House, Robinson's country pile in Isleworth. White House gained fame or infamy as a mental asylum later in the 19th century.
That's good to know. Foreshadowing, perhaps.
Poor Lady Mary only lived to be 24. By the time she died, she had given birth to 2 children. The older was born in July 1803 and was baptised in St. George's, Hanover Square, was the Thomas out of our Berkeley Tail Square. So that was him. He was born and his mum was all dead and that. And the younger was a girl called Mary.
So he's got a sister and
their
mum died. Yeah.
The children's father never remarried, served as a Member of Parliament for Yarmouth on the Isle of Wight between 1810 and 12, where he retired from public life. Subsequently, little is known about him, other than he owned the house in Tilney Street in Mayfair, and a property called Grey Hall in Sybil, Hedringham in Essex. He died in 1835 at the age of 71, was buried and recently opened Kennel Green Cemetery. He left Thomas and Mary very wealthy. They were now in their 30s and are married, which in view of their society connections is surprising.
Yeah.
Mary lived what seemed to have been a former family home in Tilney Street with 2 or 3 servants. A living arrangement appeared quite modest when compared to that of her next-door neighbours, Mr. and Mrs. Reginald Brett, and a 1-month-old son who had 9 living servants to care for them. As for Thomas, right, come on, it's got to pick up. So Thomas Meyer was even more of a cipher than his sister. He appears in the 1851 census as an annuitant, aged 46, lodging in Mayfair at 4 Chapel Street West, which is now Alfred Street, in a house owned by Anne Williams. There is no evidence that he paid land tax in London from 1835 until about 1859, which he would have done if he owned or leased property. Right, this is boring.
So what, did he just inherit it? Is that what they're saying?
I think he just lived in like lodgings.
I mean, what's happened here is, and again, bait and switch, this guy started with a load of hauntings and all the rest of it, and then he's gotten a lot into the financial affairs, or lack of the Victorian era people. An interesting approach, but hey.
Yeah. Right. So hopefully it'll start picking up now. If not, then I'm just going to bail on this and look at a different article. So at this point of the story, 50 Berkley Square had yet to acquire its notoriety. Oh, let's just see. Did I miss a bit above there? So he took lodgings, or he lived outside the capital. Then again, a relative by marriage, Lady Georgie Neville, described him as exceedingly eccentric to a degree that bordered on lunacy. Right, so it seems like he's a bit weird.
Yeah. Can I ask his opinions on window tax?
Which makes you wonder if he was institutionalized during this period. So it could be that. So he could have been at an asylum.
So it basically looks like there's a period of time where he's kind of not around or something is what they're trying to say, but they can't substantiate why that is. Okay. I
mean, it's very, very kind of well researched, but I would say too well researched.
Yeah,
I would say too well researched.
I think what we've done here, Chris, is we've just we're expecting somebody else to have written our material for us. And we're getting kind of annoyed. It's not really handed out as well as we like, which is, well.
But at this point in the story, 50 Berkley Square had yet to acquire its notoriety. For many years, it had been occupied by the Honourable Elizabeth Curzon, who died at age 91, whereupon Thomas Myers moved in. He remained there until his death in 1874. His odd habits, it was put about that he did not go outdoors for 20 years and that he slept by day and wandered the house by night, certainly contributed to rumours of hauntings. He is strangely absent from 1861-1871 censuses, both of which list only a single occupant. The sole entry for the 1861 is a servant in her early 40s, a Yorkshire woman called Eleanor Potter, while that for 1871, there is a cook in her early 70s whose name lies buried forever beneath the enumerator's illegible scrawl. So it could be that at the time of the census, the reclusus Thomas was in the house but did not want to declare himself. Maybe it suited him, as it did Miss Angela Reed of Stamford Street. The people thought that the house was haunted. That would at least be one way of getting others to leave him a fucking alone. It just sounds like he's not very social.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't mind staying in, but I think 20 years would probably be quite...
It's a bit much.
Yeah, I need to go to the shop on that.
I mean, the whole,
vitamins.
Yeah, well, get out in sunlight. Yeah.
By then, the house had become decidedly shabby, which must have annoyed his illustrious neighbours. What's more, as Thomas had stopped paying his taxes, so much so that in 1873, the tax collector for the parish of St George, Hanover Square, whose name was Knox, was forced to apply to the magistrates for a warrant of distress against his goods. He was not poor, but he was certainly eccentric, a point made by newspaper reports in the Berkley Square hauntings. And at his death in 1874, he had left his sister the lease on the house that was dirty and neglected. She had a comfortable home of her own, and 50 Berkley Square stood empty until 1884 when the lease ran out and the house was bought by Lord and Lady Selkirk. So, I mean, so they're saying he's really eccentric, but I mean, it just sounds like he didn't really care about how his house looked.
Yeah, or just maybe a bit of an introverted child. I mean, I'm wondering, kind of like, because he inherited money, probably never had to work a day in his life.
Yeah,
never really made anything of himself.
Yeah,
who knows what kind of mental illnesses he might have had? Don't want to speculate on that, but
I mean, you can. He's dead.
Possible. No, I just mean it's not. I don't think it's good to speculate on things that people may or may not have. Or not from his perspective, just generally. I think that's not.
I disagree, and I'm going to diagnose him as being demisexual.
Fair enough.
So, interestingly, these supernatural goings-on continued to grow. In 1876, a newspaper article claimed that the London Association of Spiritualists would like to exorcise the ghosts that had supposedly haunted the house for 50 years, although there was no evidence that they actually did. Stories about Thomas also began to surface.
Maybe this is why he knew his house was full of hauntings and he didn't want to let them out. That's why he couldn't sleep as well, Caesar. Right. Poltergeists.
In one of these, he had leased and furnished a house over 50 years previously in order to prepare for a marriage that never took place. Only days before the ceremony, his unfeeling and unnamed fiancée jilted him. Then he became recluse and he lived with 2 or 3 crusty servants.
Oh, there you go. See, Broken Heart.
Yeah. As a male version of Miss Havisham. Right, so I think I'm not going to read any more from that article because
kind of hoping more sort of I don't know, things start spinning around on the walls or something.
Yeah, so from my London, Ellie McKinnell, it's a much more tabloid-looking thing. So probably
let's get into one that's just full of mass speculation and stuff like that.
Yeah, beautiful.
Bit of fun, pure stuff.
In the heart of Mayfair is a townhouse that looks much like the other beautiful buildings around. Currently home to an antique bookseller, Maggs Brothers, and formerly home to Prime Minister George Canning, the ground floor building has a dark secret. 50 Berkley Square is one of London's most notorious haunted houses, with 3 men dying from fright and one woman going insane, only to die the next day. The house was home to a couple of people, but in 1859, Thomas Myers moved in. This is where the mysterious event started. So Mr. Myers was soon to be married, so this is when they do the furniture bit. Yeah. He's said to have locked himself away in the attic, only leaving the room by flickering candle at night until he went mad and died. So, headline, don't let it touch me. A series of people who have stayed in the same attic have experienced a strange brown mist. Many of them going insane or dying. Maybe they just had like a tinned pie. Yeah. A maid was sent up to the room to make a bed for a visiting man, but no sooner had she gone upstairs did she let out a blood-curdling scream. The household rushed up to her aid and found her collapsed on the floor, muttering to herself, "Don't let it touch me." She died in hospital the next day.
How'd you explain that?
The man, Captain Kentfield, decided to still spend the night in the room, and after 30 minutes after heading to bed, there was a terrible scream and the sound of a gunshot. He was found dead on the floor, his face twisted with terror.
That's quite good.
You can do tours around this place now.
Oh, really? They've probably opened it up as kind of like a
yeah.
These things definitely happened.
I think it's probably owned. I think it's owned by like London Dungeon or something. Another man, Lord Littleton, stayed the night in the attic armed with a shotgun. I'm
just thinking about the kind of person who has to do that tour. Because really, you're just being shown around a Mayfair townhouse. This is going to be nothing, and you're really going to have to pile it on thick. And here's the room with the brown mist emerged.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in some ways, we're almost doing that with this podcast because the first one was just quite a boring story about land tax.
Just got a
and a bloke who let the lease go on his house.
Yeah. Just had a bit of a disappointing life, didn't really. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the true horror, isn't it?
Neil, very much like yourself, he went to bed with a shotgun.
Yeah. Well, you never
In
know. Be
in
prepared.
the yeah, it's best to be
But it
prepared.
taught me in the Scouts and I listened.
Well, I mean,
I may have interpreted it in a way that they wouldn't, they
well,
wouldn't approve of. But hey.
I would suggest that any young boy in the Scouts should go into his sleeping bag with a shotgun. To be honest,
How else are you going to win your shotgun merit badge?
well, how else are you? How else are you going to fend off?
You also give you a chance to, practice first aid potentially and other things. Things do go wrong.
So, in the night, he saw an apparition coming towards him and he fired at it, later claiming that something fell to the floor like a rocket. But the next morning, he couldn't find anything but the shotgun cartridges. Having a bit of a dreamy shoots.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me. One of the most well stories about the haunting of 50 Berkley Square is a tale of two sailors who broke in needing a place to stay.
Did they pick the wrong place?
Ooh.
I mean, they're probably not going to go somewhere upmarket, aren't they?
No.
You're going to go somewhere in the east.
Down the docks.
Because that's where you're going to be you're probably going to be shoring up somewhere near the docks somewhere and a bit like that. And yeah, just go and stay in some kit.
It's a bit of a walk if there were sailors coming into the docks rather than.
Well, they probably got one of them hop on, hop off buses, didn't they? But dodge the fare.
They probably used a Boris bike or one of the. They probably just got there on an e-scooter.
Yeah.
So, bedding down in the attic, they were awoken at night to the sound of footsteps coming up the stairs. As the door creaked open, they came face to face with a strange, shapeless creature with the huge gaping mouth which seemed to slither into the room.
Mm-hmm.
Seized with panic, the two men tried to make their escape. One backed up towards the window while the other rushed past the creature and made his way down the staircase to the safety of the street. The escaped man returned with a police officer, only to find a smashed window. Looking out of the window, they saw the lifeless body of the sailor's friend impaled on the iron railings below.
Oh.
In a book by Charles Harper...
What exactly were you doing in this house?
I was having a kip. In a book by Charles Harper titled Haunted Houses, he describes another case of a man dying from fear. The man was skeptical of the rumours of the haunting, so decided to spend the night in the attic himself. The fool.
Oh, you never do that.
Before going to bed, he told the household that he would ring a bell in the night if he needed help. Just after midnight, the bell began to ring furiously, and he was found in convulsions of absolute terror. Died soon after.
Well, that'll happen.
While many believe the house is haunted by Mr. Myers, some legends also tell that the attic is haunted by the spirit of a young woman who killed herself jumping out of the top floor window after being abused by her uncle. It's a nice ending there.
Yeah.
Right.
So all the action seems to be happening in the attic, though.
Yeah, it's an attic-based haunting.
Yeah. It's a bit like, was it that Matasusa house, was it?
Matasuta was all on the first floor.
Yeah. I do like a localised haunting.
I
mean, be honest with you, if you're going to break in, just stay on the ground floor, you'll be fine.
So the sailors were from HMS Penelope, apparently. It's interesting little bit of.
Is that a name I should be familiar with?
Yeah, it was a central battery ironclads built by the Royal Navy in the late 1860s.
Oh, of course.
It was rated as an armoured corvette, Neil.
Yeah.
Didn't you know that? Did you learn nothing at the War Museum?
40 gunner, yeah.
She was assigned for inshore work with a shallow draft. And this severely compromised
bluff blouse and a lively.
Well, it's as you Neil, as you could have told them, the shallow draft severely compromised her performance under sail.
Well, yeah, I bet she was a bit,
Yeah, and in 1868, the ship was completed. Then she spent the next year with the Channel Fleet before she was assigned to the First Reserve Squad. Then in 1869, and became a Coast Guard ship for Harwich till 1887. which mobilised during the tensions with Russia, rose during the Russo-Turkish War of 1877, and participated in the bombardment of Alexandria during the Anglo-Egyptian War of 1882. And the ship became a receiving ship in South Africa in 1888, and then a prison hulk in 1897. She was sold for scrap in I don't need to tell you, Neil, but in 1912.
No, absolutely.
I know that's for the listener. You obviously knew all that because you're very, very into.
I have almost like a photographic memory for any nautical facts
When it comes to when it comes to the Royal Navy.
Tell me nothing about reefing and splicing and all that business.
Yeah, exactly. That's the cut of your jib.
Yeah. It's amazing how many terms we do take, like from the Navy.
Yeah, poop deck.
Yeah, poop deck.
Shiver timbers.
I can't think of any now, but yeah. Or batten down the hatches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Port side.
Yeah.
Starboards.
Slice the main brace. I use that a lot.
Hoist the mainsail.
Yeah, 3 sheets to the wind.
Mm-hmm. Whippersnapper. Yeah, it is amazing, isn't it? But I'll be honest, there isn't much more. I thought there was going to be more about Berkeley Square, to be honest. But that's considering it's meant to be the most haunted place in London. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, it's haunted by bullshit by the sound of it. I mean, what I'm taking from this is that I guess, quite often we complain that people aren't making enough money out of whatever the phenomenon is.
Yes.
Like, we were quite pleased, I think, with the Rougarou. They were actually a little festival, a little bit of fun, and they just enjoy it and lean into it.
Yeah.
Promotes tourism in the town. So we was like, this feels very much to me like, whoever's making money out of this, or, they've lent into that a little bit too heavily without too much to back it up, if you like.
Yeah, and there was a TV series called Berkeley Square, but I don't think it was about the haunted house. It was about 3 Edwardian nannies. So that sounds terrible.
You never know. It'd be funny if it was like the best show on TV, wouldn't it? Bloody hell, this is the new Deadwood.
The new Deadwood.
I know it sounds really boring, but honestly, you've got to watch it.
You've got to watch it.
Really gripping.
God,
just like a real look into the socio-economic circumstances.
This new
a group of nannies would be, just tells you so much about your life and really made me think about things.
So there, unusually, there isn't in the Wikipedia bit. There isn't anything about if it's been on media and that kind of stuff.
I think we can assume it's not been on an episode of Supernatural or whatever that show's called.
Wouldn't come to UK. There's a BBC4 radio drama called 50 Berkeley Square. And I think that's about it. So I'm going to say let's go through a scoring system. It's just going to be a slightly shorter episode this week, I'm afraid.
No, fair enough. I'm just having a quick look.
Well, I mean, last week's was intolerably long, so it balances out.
I had some feedback. It was quite enjoyable. So
did you? Was that from me?
People thought it was fun. Yeah, no.
Who gave you feedback?
Friends.
Why don't you share any of this with me? I'm sitting here.
Well, the first time we've talked, and we're on mic. So.
You can send me messages.
I'll let you know.
And of course, if you enjoyed our coronation special, please leave a comment and subscribe or something, because we are starting to wonder if it's just bots that listen to us.
I mean, that would make sense.
It would make absolute sense.
This is an absolute self-made Skinner box. Who's examining it? I mean, that was the point I was going to make about this one. Actually, it's kind of like who's, because you said that there were people doing tours, so it's like who's making the money out of this. But I don't even think there's that much money to be made. Yeah.
So the dungeons.
Well, I was expecting when you sort of said it was like, there've been loads of penny dreadfuls written about it and all that sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? It just looks like people have made up a load of dumb stories. And
so from the London Dungeon, for people who haven't been, is like a sort of spooky museum in London, but it's kind of people all dressed up and jump out at you and shit.
Yeah, it's good if you're, at the start of an acting career. Good place for you.
I know some people have done it. Yeah,
I think Matt Berry did London Dungeon, didn't he?
Did he? I don't know.
Way back when. But yeah, it's years and years since I've been there, but it's quite
I've
good
never
fun.
never been there.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, it's a lot of kind of like it's kind of fun for if one of those kids who like sort of like things that it's not quite a bit hammer horror really is what I'd say. I mean I don't know what it's like these days. I probably went back in.
So I think it might actually just be done. I think they just did it as a Halloween thing. They just did a set,
like just a one-off thing where
they did a set within the London Dungeon. It wasn't actually in the building. 50 Berkley Square Halloween Show 2022. Will you survive the night? This Halloween, will you dare step into the attic of the most haunted house in England, 50 Berkley Square? Mystery, murder, and madness surrounds the terrifying legend of this property with countless lives lost. As the stories of these fateful souls play out in front of your eyes, just one question remains. Will you survive the night? This is a limited run show, which is included in your standard entry to London Dungeons. We strongly advise you pre-book your tickets to guarantee your entry. We will sell out. So yeah, they just did like a set and told those stories.
Do you reckon they had like a set knocking around that looked like a bit of a townhouse? They're like, oh, we could turn this into one about 50 Berkeley Square.
Well, it's the attic as well, isn't it?
So
it's the attic, so they just had like some old boxes.
Yeah. It's all made out of like old Kellogg's cornflakes boxes.
Like an unused exercise bike. A unicycle.
I'm just looking up as well that Elliot O'Donnell, who was a chap who made up the story about the sailors, was an English author known primarily for his books about ghosts. Claimed to have seen a ghost described as an elemental figure covered with spot when he was 5 years old. And he also claimed to have been strangled by a mysterious phantom in Dublin. However, no permanent effect would seem to have been suffered.
Irish, wasn't it?
So yeah, an Irish ghost tried to strangle him, but
will you start going on about fecking ghosts?
I think he was, and he was descended from Irish chieftains of ancient times, including Neil of the Nine Hostages, apparently, and read here. There you go.
Absolutely no way that he can prove that.
Like, nobody can disprove it either. So,
right, let's go through.
It's a tall tale by the sound of it.
Let's go through our scoring
system. Yes.
So spookiness, Neil, 10.
I don't think we're going to do 80 this week. Kind of bog standard ones. I mean, I'm not going to give it nothing because they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, sailor getting impaled onto a. I mean, that's almost a bit of a comedy one as well. I mean, because the thing as well, of the two of them, when you were describing it, and it's like one heads to the window, one dodges past the ghost and goes down the stairs. Definitely go down the stairs. I mean, where are you going from the window, really?
No, he's too scared. There's flight or fright, isn't it?
He's backed up from the ghost. That's what you want to
do. Charge him. Charge him, give him a little rugby sidestep.
Like bullies, all ghosts are secretly cowards.
Well,
they haven't got what it takes.
Well, they were all ghosts were bullied themselves, weren't they? They were haunted. Yeah. All ghosts were haunted themselves.
Yeah.
When they were younger. Hurt people, Neil. That's all I've got to say on the matter.
Indeed. Whether undead or not.
Doesn't matter.
I can't remember what my point was. Something completely on. Yeah, so I mean, there's kind of like there's a lot of potentially spooky stuff in here, but there's just a lot of it, and it's very surface thin, so it didn't really scare you that much. So I'll give it a 4. I'm being slightly generous there, I think. But
4, okay, cool. So I can understand the spookiness of it being kind of a dilapidated house and like there being lights on at weird times and that kind of stuff. Because
townhouse in Mayfair, though. I mean,
simpler times, though. Now, simpler times. I mean, because we used to, we used to spook ourselves out, kind of, the dilapidated. Like I was saying earlier about, like there'd be a local kind of house which was all dilapidated and stuff, and you used to spook yourself out as a kid. And I consider people from the past to have the brains of children. So I can. They had the brains of children and were off their faces on opium. So I'm sure it was pretty spooky for them. And then obviously the rags, the tabloids have kind of started putting loads of scary tales and stuff in there. I don't know. If you heard it all, I think it'd be quite scary. You wouldn't want to necessarily sleep in the attic, would you? I think
for a bet though.
Yeah, I mean, I'd personally be fine sleeping in the attic because I think it's all bollocks. I mean, it's just
happens.
No, it's
wake up screaming.
Exactly, some big mouth southerner. I don't know. It's got some. I think the thing is that the sailors see something weird, kind of slithery and that kind of thing. I've seen a picture of that kind of on a different website. I couldn't find it today, and it looked kind of like it had like tentacles and stuff.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know if that was just an artist's interpretation or whatever. But it had that kind of Cthulhu thing going on, the slithery lad. But that's just a sailor one. The thing is, like, it's difficult to know what to be spooked about because no one ever
brown mist.
Brown mist. I mean, I've been to football matches, soccer matches, and brown mist because of all the booze and pies that horrible men there.
One of those.
Horrible men have at football matches. There's plenty of brown mist around. One of the reasons why I'm a sofa fan these days.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give it a 6-0 because of the stuff that I said last. Believability. So I believe that. We've gone through the land records. What the guy has. And so
the house exists and somebody lived there.
The house exists and the guy lived there, and he sounds like he was potentially had some, mental issues, perhaps, or perhaps he just wasn't very social. Do you know what I mean? Like he wasn't a standard man, I guess you would say. So that's all true, it's got that gives it some believability. Regarding all the other stuff, it does very much seem like these are just stories that people attach to the house. So I'm going to go straight to the middle and give it a 5 because the house exists and the bloke existed.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go lower, I think, because...
You don't believe the house exists?
Well, no, a house exists doesn't mean that the house is haunted, does it? That's the point. So I think the believability here is, do we believe it was haunted or not? And normally where we cut through on this is, well, obviously we don't necessarily believe that such and such a thing happened or such and such a thing exists, but could someone else believe it or in the right light, or if it's 3 o'clock?
That's how you choose to score it. That isn't how I choose to.
Fair enough. You go your own way. But no, for me, like all of the people who've written these articles, they don't seem to believe it. All of the people writing it seem to, they're just like storytellers, or they've got some other motivation to make stuff up. So it doesn't even feel like anyone actually believes what it is that they're saying here. So yes, it's a real house and it exists. Yes, a person lived there who, did some things that.
Totally.
I'll give it a 3 on the basis that because he was up all night and he sort of spoke to his neighbours because he was probably a bit of a hoarder and kind of like was a bit erratic. That probably might have influenced some of the legends that came afterwards. But yeah, nobody seems to actually believe in the brown mist or the sailors and all the rest of it. They all seem to have been made up later on. So I don't think they're inherently believable. So yeah, 3 for me.
Fair enough. Narrative premise, Neil?
Okay, this is one of those ones where it's just a haunted house, isn't it? So, and there's a lot of other stuff.
Let's get the Warrens involved.
Yeah, we need some Warrens involved and get the franchise. And it's not like the Enfield hauntings. At least you've got a couple of kids, so there's something there you can. Yeah, there's not. It's just a bit generic. There's not.
Yeah.
There's not a lot.
You got to remember, it's quite old as well.
It is, but we talked about that one where somebody was like, a monster made a hair and a one back in the day and stuff like that. Yeah, you could do something a bit more imaginative. None of this I'll probably remember after I record this podcast. It's not, but for the most haunted house in the country.
To be fair, that's true of every podcast we do.
Yeah, that's true, and various other things
and conversation.
Yeah, it's too generic. I'm afraid. It's considering it's the most
haunted house in London.
The most haunted house in the country. Yeah, I'll give it a 3 again. I think I'm
3. Yeah. So there's lots of different stories, but they're all much of a muchness of something happening, which no one's really sure what, and then a person killing themselves or dying of fright.
Turning to brown mist.
But yeah,
Well, that's the one I
maybe.
do like, actually. That's
Well,
that's where I'd hook on to.
I like the Salem ones where there's a slithering big mouth monster thing, because at least there's something tangible. But yeah, no, I agree. It's pretty boring fare, to be honest. All told.
Unless you're into tax records, in which case fill your boots.
Yeah. But as you know, I'm not allowed near stories about tax records anymore because I end up staying up for nights on ends, sort of reading, like in a manic state.
It's muttering to yourself.
A fugue state, reading stories about tax records. So I just can't start anymore. I broke my off button when it comes to them.
Where's Form 22X32?
Got
It was misfiled. It was misfiled.
Banging my head against the wall.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it a 3 as well, Neil.
Fair enough.
So, Reach. So, I mean, there's loads of website stuff about it. People, they keep saying it's the most haunted house in London, but is it? or is it the way that Robert is the most haunted doll in the world? You know, who's saying it? Is it people have got some? You know, I don't know. Like,
at least he's in a museum. You know.
I mean, these stories have been going on for, a couple 100 years, 150 years, whatever. So, I mean, it's got a decent reach through time. I'm surprised it hasn't been in more media stuff, to be honest. And I doubt, I mean, it's an Assassin's Creed, fair enough, but I doubt anyone else would have heard of it. I doubt that a lot of people in London have heard of it.
Yeah,
so
I've heard of it.
I'm giving it a 3.
Yeah, probably similar. I mean, the one thing, if it's been an Assassin's Creed, well, that's interesting. But yeah, I've never heard of it. It doesn't. I mean, obviously, it'll stay around to a certain extent because
you know what happens. You do like some investigating, then you find the bloke in a hidden room in the attic, and you just assassinate him.
Nice. What is Assassin's Creed? What were you expecting?
You don't let him explain or anything.
They're not do that thing. I think I only played the first couple, but in the first
where they have a chat with them.
Yeah, exactly. Where as he's assassinated, they do like a big monologue.
No,
they cut that out.
No, they still do that with the sort of main things. This is like a side mission thing.
Oh, okay. So he doesn't do like a big monologue to tell you about what's going on.
No, not with him.
Oh well. Right, where was I? I'll reach. Yeah. So yeah, other than that, yeah. I mean, as you say, on lots of websites and stuff, but I think that's the nature of the copy and paste way that the internet seems to work these days.
Right, Grandad.
Used to be good, Chris. Yeah, no, 3 for me as well, I think.
So that gives us an overall score of 30, which, is okay.
It's fine. It started promisingly, but
yeah, I thought it was going to be a lot better.
Quite superficial.
At some point, we were going to have to do it, so it's out of the way now, because we can't have
can't not investigate the most haunted house.
Most haunted house in London. Do you know what I mean? Like, that has to be. And it turns out it's crap. Yeah. But there we go. They can't all be boo hags. So if you want to give us an email or something, I know you don't, but you're welcome to at herb.legends.podcast@gmail.com. And yeah, so sorry that wasn't exciting as I was hoping it was going to be, but there you go. You win some, you lose some. It's a podcast, isn't it? You've done 100 of them.
Hey, this is the Coronation Special. There's more to that. Or one of the other nearly 100 that we've done, not including all the extras.
Yeah. So, so I apologise, but half-heartedly. But yeah,
don't care.
Neil doesn't care less.
Got what you're paid for.
So, enjoy your week, and we will be back next week, and I hope everything's good for you. We do appreciate your listens, even if you are the world's most silent listenership.
If you happen to be a show, like haunting the attic of a townhouse in Mayfair, maybe listen to some podcasts.
Yeah, why not?
Something to do in it while you're
cool. Right, guys and gals and others, we will be back same time next week, and I hope you have a pleasant journey. Goodbye.
Bid you adieu. Goodbye.
Antennae. Server. USB. Wi-Fi. Chip and pin. MIDI bit.